character sheet. This is if you go on and scroll down, it's below all of the weapons and the armor. There will be a list of skills on the left-hand side.
Yes.
Oh.
And there will be on the left-hand side, if you look for the one that's called heal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at the wrong sheet there. You should be able to click on the D20 on the left-hand side, and that will...
Okay, here goes.
Okay, that's a 9. It's not enough to tell you like for certain, but you can certainly see that from what Alistair has described, if this is the same person that was doing it, you could see that they were probably getting better at doing so. Yes, absolutely. Also, sorry, go on.
So I was going to say if I could do a similar check just to see if it is linked anyway to the corpse that me and Modex found.
Sure, go ahead. Do you want to make a heal check as well?
Another heal check. Okay. So,
John, yes, surgery isn't your specialty, but you're certainly able to pick up that. Yeah, it seems to be better. As Dante takes another look, you're aware that your friend he's a very experienced healer. He's seen a lot of dead and living bodies, and he's healed you up a number of times in your own adventures working together. So as he casts his eye across it. Dante, absolutely, from what he said and from what you've talked with Mydak about, from the body that you and Mydak saw 3 days ago that was completely decimated. You never saw the upper torso yourself, but from speaking to Mydak, he'll have been able to tell you that the point that it was, the kind of corruption was spreading out from was definitely around the heart area. From the one 2 days ago that Alistair had looked at, which was and what he's described as being a kind of a hole around about the size of a half-orc's head, but still very messy. This one from last night absolutely is a more precise wound, specifically from what saying regarding the way that the ribs were slightly splayed on the one that he saw. This seems like a refinement on what has been done before, one could describe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do we have any guesses as to how the ribcage was opened?
Could anybody who wishes, in fact, Joanna, if you want to give me a knowledge arcana check.
Okay, 1 second.
Knowledge arcana. From looking as Joanna takes a look, she's someone who's very experienced at seeing the many different ways that people have been killed before. It doesn't look, you can't see any entry wounds from some kind of knife. It seems like it's been peeled back. If this was done by some kind of creature with its claws even, there would be further evidence of marks and markings. This is almost like something has pulled it apart from the inside. This is almost certainly some kind of arcane purpose that has caused this.
Is there any...
Does Joanna share that with the group?
Yes, I'm happy to share that with the group.
Yep. In that case, can I do a local knowledge roll just to know if there's anything like this in the city that's known for doing like any local groups or cults that are known to do such things?
You could absolutely make that kind of roll. Go ahead.
As he's doing that, is there anything missing from the chest cavity?
The heart is gone.
The heart is gone,
okay. In terms of for a 13 on local knowledge, you know that because of the way that Fourspires operates, it doesn't have the Pathfinder Society, and the militia, they tend to only really get involved with things that affect the noble classes. This is partly why a lot of you have been vigilantes in the first place. So you know that a lot of necromantic, demonic, cult activity does tend to happen in the city, especially around the poorer areas, or not so much south of the river, because whilst that's a poor area, it's also where there's a lot of crime. Slightly north of the river, still in the bad areas, but just good enough that you can if you pay your taxes, the militia aren't going to bother you. You know, that kind of area. Historically, there's been a lot of that kind of cultish activity. Recently, not so much. As you cast a glance across to Alistair, for some reason the cults are starting to become a lot less obvious because somebody's been going after them whenever they are known to appear. Do you have any...
gun.
You're aware that you're not entirely sure for the reasons why, but you're aware that a lot of the cults are kind of shit scared of Balor for some reason. Mostly it's because he shoots them.
Is it possible to have a quick look for any extraneous marks on the body or in the mouth?
Absolutely. In that case, I would like you to give me either a perception or a perception for kind of an overall view of the body, or a heal for a more specific inside the mouth, depending on what you want to do.
Okay, I'm going to go for perception. After that, can I urge my colleagues to examine the mouth?
Absolutely. You can. Yep, indeed. You all work as a team, and you all have different areas of expertise. So, passing it around and sharing that is all very good. So, in terms of the perception check for the body, it's you knew that this had been taken from where it was originally. It had been found in the streets, not a huge way away from the Halfling Quarter. Actually, it was in a back street. You look over the body, you can notice there are kind of like face dustings of like paint on her, but you know that she was an actress. Inspector Sands said she was working for some kind of theatre near the Halfling Quarter, and you can presume, looking over kind of her hands and her feet, one of the curious things actually when you look over her hands and her feet, it's got the kind of residues that one might expect. Obviously with the Halfling Quarter have a street there having been burnt, there's quite a lot of ash around there. There's quite a lot of halflings being halflings. There's a lot of food and dust and smoke in the air. Having looked at the body, knowing that it had been moved relatively quickly into as not sterile but as relatively clean area as you can, there's some interesting things you can take from not necessarily what's on there, but the order in which these things might have happened. You can see there's blood on her feet from obviously whenever this had happened. It's, you know, there are droplets there, not a huge amount, as if something was stopping it from being spilled outright, but there's definite drops there. But from the way that they're kind of patterned on the foot, it's almost like, and especially on the exposed ribs, you can see as you take a closer look, you can kind of see kind of like an ashen cloud, some like specks of ash and some rain that's then streaked afterwards. And from looking at that, it's almost like whatever happened to her and her chest was opened, she'd walked for a little bit afterwards and then fallen over. So so whatever did this was not instantly fatal. And as an experienced criminologist, you know that ain't normal.
To say the very least.
Okay. Does anyone else have any things they would like to do?
I would like to urge everybody just to have a quick look at her mouth, if that's possible.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll pull out a small, like maybe set of like little medical instruments and just sort of open the mouth and have a like pull the tongue to one side, have a look. Just have a little look in there and see what I see.
Okay. Do you want to make a heal check? Oh yes, you have. Oh, a 21. Oh, that's very good.
I do get a plus 11. So.
That's quite good. Yes. So as you open the mouth, you take a closer look inside there. There's certainly no items that have been placed in there, but looking at the way there are some bite marks on her tongue, certainly she was in a lot of pain before she died. Certainly the clenching of her, it's almost like she was fighting against her own body, just from the way that the way that the rigor mortis is set. It kind of backs up what Joanna has noticed from the way that the environmental factors had affected the body. In particular, the way you would have expected. It's very difficult to place times of death on things like this, but you would have expected it to have started rotting a little bit more by now. It has started, but it's almost like it's been offset by a small amount of time.
Interesting.
Can I do a check to sense if this has anything to do with a cult or a demon?
Sure. Now, if you want to give me a knowledge local, actually, because you know quite a lot about this kind of things. Wow, that's a 24. That's a very good roll. Okay, so
nice.
you learned something quite interesting from that. One of the things that you in terms of cults in general, they've kind of been keeping their heads down, because the ones that keep their heads up keep getting shot for some reason. And but one of the things that you do know, just in terms of the kind of cultish activity that's going on, is that a lot, like the ideas of internal organs and like hearts specifically, that's very much the kind of thing that these kind of necromantic, ritualistic groups, they very much focus on. It's generally not just a heart. One of the things, it's the kind of people that are looking for hearts in rituals, it's very rarely just a normal heart. One of the things that you do notice that both this victim and the victim that I believe, so this victim and the victim that you are aware of, Alistair, were both half-elves. The victim that Medak and Dante found was an elf. There are certainly cultish kind of, I would say fetish, but in the sense of like a necromantic fetish, you know, like an arcane item that have to do with elvish bloodlines. That's certainly something that you've seen before.
Okay. I think that's made Alistair a little angry, knowing that, and he is now touching the hilt of his revolver, I suppose.
Fortunately, you know that the has Alistair let known regarding the victim that he found what the relation was there, or?
No, I've kept that quiet.
Okay, cool. So in terms of so you are well aware that like certainly, and when I say specific bloodlines, a lot of the time for a 24, I can say that a lot of times it can be a specific, not just being a general elf or half elf, but especially some of the cults that you've been seeing recently around have you found a lot of books that seem to be not specifically from the cults. You don't think it was any of the cults that you've dealt with because they're not really around anymore, but there certainly seems to be a tendency towards the type of necromancy and ritualistic activity in this area that tends towards specific bloodline stuff.
Are you telling me they basically are my bloodline?
No, because it was a cousin by marriage.
Okay.
But yeah.
Can I just ask, does Joanna, after hearing what Dante and Medak have had to say about the previous victim that they found, is there any way to ascertain whether those victims were related?
There certainly is. You probably need to do some research in terms of family trees now that you have a name. You have a name for this victim as well, because obviously Inspector Sands had told you that as well. And